Welcome to AltTabMe.com, the community that outlasts the release dates, Wildstar Podcast. This is where we talk about the upcoming MMO, Wildstar, and everything and anything that's interesting. Now there's a little catch. We only record for 30 minutes. At the end of that 30 minutes, no matter what we've talked about, what we're talking about, we stop. If you want to continue the conversation or you want to suggest things for further podcasts or we haven't talked about something enough, please head on over to AltTabMe.com and participate with the community. We think that's a great way to get everybody together and make this more of an interactive podcast. So with that said, this week we are going to be talking about the Atmosphere of Wildstar. And the clock starts now. All right, guys. So the Atmosphere of Wildstar, what does that even mean? For those that are wondering, the Atmosphere of Wildstar has been something that's really forefront ever since Wildstar was announced. I don't think I could say Wildstar in a sentence any more than I have just said right now. But either way, the idea is that Wildstar is... Well, okay, look at that. I added one. Haha. You've got your exiles, you've got your dominion, and that's just one facet of the atmosphere. So through the release trailers that they've shown, they have these personalities. And Wildstar seems to be going off of comedy, and comedy being epic. So when I worked for some companies or in the few, in games that we've seen, usually the first thing you see is an epic battle and, fire raining down from the sky and all sorts of really crazy, big battle scenes or something like that. Even in the beginning of, say, Warcraft, like the original Warcraft, the first cinematic was fire coming down from the sky and, orcs coming over mountains. No. In Wildstar, they were like, let's joke about ourselves. Let's make fun of our factions. Let's talk about the fluffy bunny people. Let's talk about how there's people that are into that. You know what I mean? But it puts it in this, they spin it in a way where it still feels epic, which, by the way, I hate the word epic because I swear to God, if one more person comes to me and says, can you make a movie that looks epic? I'm going to be like, gouge you in the eyeball.
But it's true, though. It does kind of feel epic. It's not just a simple game where you kind of have that, one side versus the other, epic battle war, superstars or whatever. But it's back down to Earth or back to Nexus or whatever you want to call
Out
it
of
in this
Earth,
case.
space.
Yeah. But they really took, they took their cartoony side, their Pixar, Disney / WoW mix love child that they have made in space, and
Wow.
then they've really put the comedy essence into it, and they made you appreciate what's going on. Everything so far, it draws you in. It's not just, oh, big battle, I want to be a part of it. It's like, wow, I can actually empathize with that side, or I can see myself on that side, controlling everything on the planet, or it draws you in, and it gets you excited. It's not just battle, but it's like, wow, I actually relate to that.
I think you nailed it with Pixar. I feel like Pixar is one of those major companies that does a lot of character-driven pieces. For instance, Up. Was Pixar, right?
Oh yeah.
So I don't know
that
if anybody's seen Up. If you haven't, we're not going to spoil it, but definitely go see it. It's like you'll be crying within the first 10 seconds of that movie. I have never seen... What, Bruce?
The first 8 minutes is the best love story ever told.
It's brilliant.
It gets you. You can stop there, and then that's the end of the movie.
It's brilliant,
for you.
and that's what I
amazing.
feel Wildstar is bringing to the table. In 3 minutes or less on their Meet the Dominion or Meet the Exiles trailers, you literally are sucked into the world, and you're like, holy crap, I either relate to that person or I relate to that person. And you almost immediately want to play with them. You want to be in their world. You want to know their story. You want to know their lore. And for me, that's really important because... I often will skip the flavor text. I'll often skip the quest text. And when a game, presents it in a way that, especially for me, because I really like comedy, that's, romantic comedy. I'm going to go watch that thing. Yeah, I'm a girl, whatever. So, but that kind of stuff really appeals to me. So the fact that they immediately came out of the gate swinging with jokes, it was like, all right.
Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned Pixar. I don't know if you did it on purpose or not, but I've read dev speaks and I've seen videos where they've talked about they consciously went with a more Pixar, World of Warcraft cartoony look because early on they had a more realistic look, and
Yeah.
the models and everything was more modeled towards actual human looking things, but they said it was too serious for their whole attitude of their company. And you can tell when they're talking on their dev speaks, when they're talking on videos, they're very joking and they're very tongue in cheek. Like, I think one of the devs said that he wants to, keep stuff secret because it makes more people want to buy the game so they can get more beer, and really beer fuels the whole industry.
Yeah.
So
Sounds like our community.
Yeah.
That definitely
So the
fuels
art-
our
Yeah.
our lives.
the art really follows the whole attitude that they have of, we want it to be lighthearted and fun and make something that we want to play, because play is the operative word here. And so that kind of fuels the atmosphere too.
Well, they built the. I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, they have the comedy and everything that seems to draw everybody in, and like you said, pull everybody into the game and make you want to play it. But they don't forsake a serious storyline in the background for those people who enjoy that kind of thing. I mean, because if you read it, it's a pretty serious and kind of dark, like, prelude to where we start off whenever we get our hands on the game at Nexus. So they still have the underlying, like, serious lore for all those lore fans out there and everything. And it sounds like it's going to be an interesting and mysterious kind of story with the whole Eldon disappeared off the planet and whatnot. We don't know what happened to him and things like that. So they
Yeah.
kind of have both of them together, which I guess sort of makes everybody happy, hopefully.
Yeah.
And their most recent leak is the Eldon didn't just disappear. Something got rid of them, and they're coming back. That's their first, like, big boss mode, I think, of a prelude to what's actually happening.
Spoiler alert.
Well, it's open.
Way to
It's
go.
open information
No,
right
they-
now, so
they- yeah.
I don't feel too bad spoiling of that one.
Suckers. I think something that's really cool too is that they've mentioned multiple times that this game engine, because I hear a lot of people say wow. You see it and you say wow. The engine for this game was built proprietary for them. They built this from the ground up. This was not. They didn't take the Unreal Engine. They didn't take anything else. They're using their own engine to fit their art assets and to fit their game environment the way that they see fit. And I think that an important thing to look at that with is that you have a world that, while it looks like WoW in terms of color, and I think I've said this in one of our previous podcasts, but now we can really dive into it. You look at the game, and I think the only reason you go, that's WoW, is because of the bright colors. And there's not many games out there that have had bright colors like World of Warcraft. So now take a screenshot of Wildstar and take a screenshot of WoW, put them together, and bam, you see the difference. One has a very smooth Pixar type look, which is Wildstar, and then WoW is a little bit more grungy. And that's also because it's a little bit dated at this point. I mean, it's 10 years old now?
Yeah, it's close.
About 10
It's
years.
pushing a decade now.
Yeah, so I mean, there's no fault on World of Warcraft for that. Their game looked awesome when it first came out, and I still think it holds up. I think it still looks fun. But if you look at Wildstar, it will push your machine to the limits and make you feel like you're in a modernized version of not WoW, but of an MMO and how it should feel. You're not going to walk around and be like, oh, look at that mountain that is just like, someone painted on, Minecraft skins. You know what I mean? It definitely has a beautiful look. Which, by the way, I saw this in a video and I just want to stick this in here. When you jump down a mountain, I thought this was the coolest thing. I saw it today, even though this video has been out for like a couple months and I probably watched it 8 times. When you jump down mountainsides, you know how usually like in a game you just kind of fall or it skips or something? Your animation applies to the angle of the mountain, and you kind of slide down it with your feet in a cool I'm surfing this mountain kind of way.
Yeah, that's one thing I always hated when you're climbing a mountain and you're not just standing up, you're crooked to the mountain, just like, oh, I'm climbing a mountain. You're just defying gravity.
I thought that was really
Ignoring the
cool.
laws of physics.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was really cool. Guild Wars 2 had stuff like that too, where your feet would adjust to your terrain.
Yeah,
So
they did, especially on Char. I really loved running on all four in Char, and like the side of the mountain, you're like crooked, and like it was pretty cool.
So I mean, what do you think? Do you think that this kind of an art style is something that will either make or break, someone's initiative to go get Wildstar?
I think it brings in a larger diversified crowd than, say, one specialized, realistic form. I mean, you really have to be into, realistic stuff to get into it. Like, when you get into a realistic looking game, you expect it to look really realistic, and you're going to be looking for flaws that will, kind of ruin it. You're always looking for that to prove that, oh,
Yes.
this is just a game. But with the cartooniness, you can kind of accept those flaws a little bit better. And I would hope to think that they'll play off of some of these things, like something that, some explosion off in the distance looks kind of cartoony. Maybe they'll put a joke in like, oh, that looks like a powder keg instead of a bomb or something. It's something silly.
Yeah.
Something, but
Or a Draken runs by and then you see like a little like Orin run by and she goes meep meep.
You can't do that kind of stuff in a realistic game. I mean, that's too non-immersion,
Yeah. You also have to consider system requirements. You're going to be able to draw in a larger crowd. I mean, someone's going to see that and say, "Oh, that looks cool. It's great." And if you're looking at a very realistic game, they're going to go, "There's no way my computer's going to run it." It's like 2 years old already and it's already out of date. So, I mean, you're going to be able to draw in a lot more people who see it and maybe they like the gameplay and they go, "All right, I can run this because it's going to last longer." They're going to be able to run it on a wide range of systems from different years and whatnot, and it'll people will be able to play it for longer without worrying about updating their systems before they start to get in the game and whatnot. So I mean, it should pull in more people that way.
Plus, if you have the addiction factor added to that, then for me personally, I can take my like 4-year-old MacBook and boot camp it into like Windows, and no matter where I go, I can still play, which is good.
Exactly.
Well, I think also it's not just the suspension of disbelief on the artifacts in the game, like, oh, that guy couldn't hold that big sword if it was a more realistic looking thing. I think it's also the acceptance of the play style in a more cartoony game, or not as realistic game, you're accepting of different things that can happen, like the double jump or jumping down a mountain or whatever. Like in a more realistic game, you're thinking, no, that's not it. It feels real, so he couldn't really do that.
Or just the simple idea of the one thing that always like irks me is whenever you're in a game and some guy is holding a broadsword with one hand, and I'm just like, no, you can't do that.
Oh, did you see? I don't know if anybody watches it, but there's a YouTube where a guy actually builds, a blacksmith guy builds the stuff that's in video games and stuff, and he made Cloud Sword, and he's this big brawly guy, and he could barely hold it himself.
And he wasn't swinging it either. He's just literally dropping it on stuff to prove its strength.
Well, I have the Arthas sword, the Frostmourne. Yeah. And and there was a picture of one of the biggest guys in the company when I worked there, and he's like this with two of them holding him out, and you're just like, holy crap! And so we would go into the quad, and we'd have the two swords, and we'd all try it. And we're like, we can't do this. So it was one of those EP moments, you know what I mean?
See, if you were a cartoon, you could do that.
Yes,
there you go.
Exactly.
Even though your personality is kind of like a cartoon sometimes.
So let's talk about the attitude of the different factions a little more. So you've got who do you want to start with? Exiles?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Sure. All right, we'll start with the Exiles. So Exiles to me seem like the underdogs. Underdog. Sorry, I just had to. I just dated myself. the kids that are watching this are like, what the fuck did he just do? And then they're like, ooh, he said fuck, I like him again. Anyway, so like they're the underdogs. You've got your humans that very Southern Belle style, and then you've got your Orin, which are like the earthy nature bunny creatures, I suppose you could say. I'm sure they're not bunnies, by the way. They've got to be something, and
They're a cat bunny breed almost, crossbreed
Yeah,
with
because they got a
humans.
long tail, but they've got the bunny ears, and that's
Yeah.
just what
And-
everybody notices right off.
Yeah, in a few different videos, we keep seeing the primary bunny ear and fluffy tail and long tail and all that other stuff. But in some videos, you'll actually see mixes, like almost like a koala look in one of them. Like so, it
Yeah.
seems like there's almost like a mix of different kind of animals. So, but they're earthy animal creature ish.
Yeah, and then you've got the Granok, the big guys made of fucking rocks. I mean, they're just raw. They remind me of the orcs.
They remind me of
Yeah.
Southern Americans, like the or it's not Southern American, like
Excuse me?
Texans, like Texans. They're drinking beer, big guns. and
They
they're
remind
always,
me of the
and they're-
Mexicans.
That's not what I meant. That is not what I meant at all. People in the South in America. There we go. But they do. They're like Texans.
Okay, I can see that.
That's what I was trying to say. They have big guns. They're grabbing their crotch. They got a beer in their hand. They just seem like really Americanized rock people. I don't know.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that like the big brawny rock guys would be part of the underdogs, but evidently, I guess their whole race and world and stuff has been kind of beaten down and
yeah.
overtaken. So they're kind of the refugees, I guess.
Yeah, they got messed up according to the lore. The Dominion absolutely annihilated them, and they had to run
Same
hard.
thing with the Orin, though, too, I think.
I believe.
And
yeah,
then
the,
we've still got one race that we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So
the
we'll see what
Orin,
that is.
the Orin got hit with the Dominion's big, basically damn it, the construction
Death Star.
crew.
The industrial.
No, the industrial.
Star.
That's it. Thank you, Bruce. Bruce always knows my words. No, but it's the industrial. They came through and they rolled their trees and stuff. And there's a great interview. If you guys find it, it's really cool. It's on Wildstar's main website. There's a great interview with an Orin. So one of the Wildstar devs took the role of an Orin, and they interview, and it's awesome. Where the Orin's just like, I knew some of those trees. They were my friends. So
It's like Fern Gully.
it's really cool. It's really cute. So now, before we move on to the Dominion, how do you guys feel that, because this is a sci-fi MMO essentially, how do you feel that this faction, the Exiles, fit in with the sci-fi genre? I just stumped y'all, didn't I?
Kind of did actually. I mean,
I think it works. I think it's they, being that they're all different kind of races, you can kind of bring it together that, hey, they banded together. There's these little pockets of different types of peoples that kind of banded together against the big machine. And being that it's sci-fi, you could bring in these different, whole species and kind of bring them together as the underdogs, as the I guess the hunted ones, if you want to look at the bigger scheme of things. Like, it might not be that way on this world because it's remote enough that the forces both sides can bring together would be more even.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see how they kind of pull it in.
Yeah.
And relating to that whole space thing, I know we said, I think on the first podcast, that it's not set in space, but I saw some rumors recently, and of course these are just rumors, but I heard that they're doing some things where they want to bring the space back into it more, so you can have some space battles in maybe raids or dungeon sections where you actually go up and you fight in different gravities or
cool.
in spaceships a little bit. Of course, this is complete rumor. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, I'm going to actually intervene on that one, and I hate that we're segueing really far off topic for a moment, but I actually have seen some videos of them playing with different graphics, gravities. There we go. So you can actually see they've added some items in there, like I guess one of them you're holding like a big flower, almost like an umbrella, and then you're in a airstream. They showed it probably for about 2.5 seconds, but you can tell that the fall speed is slowed down, so you almost have like a slow fall ability because of this jet stream or something. Yeah, and then they showed another one where the jump speed almost doubled to what it, or not not the speed, the jump height doubled twice as much, and not just from double jump. I mean, actually jumped, and it felt slower. So I don't know if it was just wonky video showmanship or if it was actually playing with different gravities. So I think they want to incorporate something into it. Maybe not necessarily instant, different planet, different gravity kind of stuff, but they're definitely playing with the idea of environmental gravity for certain sections.
Well, I think it's very playful, and it goes off the idea, since this is the Atmosphere of Wildstar podcast, it goes off the idea of the very playful attitude and the comedy and stuff like that, where you can have that suspension of disbelief and put in anti-gravity into the world, and having a crazy rock person jump into that, and it works on them. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of really cool things that they can almost retcon in, but work in a very good way. I think in general the atmosphere of what you see and what they've shown us of the environments with the snow, the environments with the sunnier areas, the sand areas, stuff like that. Everything seems to fit the genre of sci-fi. Yes, it could look like maybe a snowstorm that you've seen on the East Coast, or it could look like the desert out west. But at the same time, you're looking at it and you're like, ooh, I've never seen something like that. I've never seen something like this. And it's not in a way where you're going, oh, it's wow. You're going, this looks unique and this looks very interesting. I believe their art team is doing a wonderful job at really connecting the dots to making this a unique experience, even though there are some similarities to what we have played before. So, let's go on to the Dominions.
That was quite a heavy segue, wasn't it?
That was huge. But that's all right. It's the atmosphere, so it encompasses a lot of shit. So the Dominion. Who wants to kick off Dominion? Because I kicked off Exiles.
Well, or me or John, I suppose.
Go ahead.
Okay. I kind of get the feel from the Dominion that they're not necessarily like the bad guys or the Empire or anything. They're just the group that are all about conquest and all about getting everything under their rule, and they've got the technology and they've got the power to just steamroll kind of everything, and I guess in the Orange case literally. But
that reminds me. I'm sorry. I have to jump off for a second. That reminds me of Roger Rabbit. No, Roger Rabbit. When they run over Roger Rabbit with the big steamroller and he just floats out. Once again, I've just dated myself, so I'm gonna say a curse word again.
No.
Fuck.
Roger Rabbit is a great reference. Please use that one more often.
Okay.
That's right. But that's if the exiles are the hunted, then I feel that the Dominion are the hunters. And like I said earlier, in this one world where we've come to, they're more on even footing, but that's still the attitude that I get from the feeling of each each faction's general motivation, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, on the human side, on the exiles, you've got very playful, very upbeat, we're protecting ourselves kind of stuff. And on the Dominion, it's like, even in the video, he has a wine glass and he's very posh and he's like, hello everyone, welcome to the Dominion. And he's like, we will crush you, and he breaks the glass. I mean, they're like super serious fuckers. They're not messing around. They're like, it's like going to the clubhouse. You have a membership card only for these guys. So, and then you've got what? I don't know.
Never mind.
All right, it was sexual. That's what happened.
Yeah, something you said. I called. Yeah. Anyways,
okay.
Continue.
So, and then you've got the Makari, who are the robot guys, who are absolutely just 100% programmed to kill the exiles. End of story.
Deathbot 9000.
They are here, exactly. They are the Terminator, and everybody else is John Connor. And they see nothing but red, and they're not Arnold Schwarzenegger being happy-go-lucky. They are Arnold Schwarzenegger, episode 1 of Terminator. Like, they are going to kill you, and you are going to die. So they're seriously, and they even say it in the trailer. They are the serious business. They don't joke. So it'll be interesting to see, in an atmosphere of very playfulness, how that works with a race that is very, I'm a robot and I have my, must execute, blah blah blah.
Well, that's where the charm comes in, though, because they don't know any better. It's gonna create all these little silly, they walk by a rabbit and kills it. It's like, I had to kill the bunny. And it's like, just imagining a robot talking about a bunny just amuses me right there. See? You chuckled a little bit right
I can't help you with that, Hal. Something like that,
But I don't know, they're gonna like end up in some weird situations of just like awkward comedy.
Yeah, probably. And then you've got the Draken. Yeah, see the Draken are the only race to me that don't. I hate to say it, but they don't make sense to me. I'm sorry. I mean, I get it. Like they're the feral creatures and they're very ferocious and blah blah blah. But I don't understand how they got teamed up with the robot Cassian, like very posh people. You know what I mean? Even the robots, they are held like like this, and the Cassians are like, Mwah. And then the Draken are all like, I'm scratching my ass.
Well, they're like mercenaries. I think.
That's where they went.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes,
kind of like
that
their
makes
foot
more
soldiers,
sense.
basically. They're like the Cassians, sort of like the upper class, sort of like leaders of the Dominion, and then like I kind of feel like the Draken are like they found them and like they're our army. That's their big. They have the Makari, but that's like their foot soldiers or grunts or whatever that they use for everything.
That makes.
I always got the
sense.
feeling that the Cassians saw the Drakens more as like a rabid dog that they had on a leash and just kind of pointed it at the enemies and let it loose.
A front line.
And they didn't feel it was like an equal level person. They just thought it was this weapon that they could send out and have it attack.
Misa wanna kill the exiles. Sorry,
also,
I had to.
The mindset of the Draken is they're purely in it for the hunt. That's the other thing. They are the hunters. They are literally like I was watching one of the videos the other day, and they're showing some of the Draken starting zone or something like that, and the dev was actually talking about that they were put into that set when they land. They're actually put into that zone specifically because they need to experience their first challenge of battle with these new life forms. They are there in order to conquer and get stronger and conquer and get stronger, and that's their mindset is purely to battle and get stronger in order to battle stronger things. That's their reason for living. So
well, they've made a very interesting setup where you have the exiles and you have the Dominion and you have the playfulness and you have the comedy and all that stuff in the atmosphere and the world and all that stuff. But I feel like it's going to be, until you get your hands on these guys and you see their individual stories, picking what side or who you want to play with is going to be less dependent on an overall faction pride until you find out which person in that faction you want to be. And then once you pick that, I feel like faction pride will be through the roof. But until you figure out which race you want to play, I feel like it's hard to pick, because right now each race is so different. It's not as cut and dry as World of Warcraft was, where you had, the Horde or the Alliance, where it was, even though people looked at it backwards, Horde being the bad guys and Alliance being the good guys, it's not that way, just for all the lore people out there. Anyway, but you had your ugly and you had your pretty. In this game, you've got a mixture.
Human-centric type characters or monster-centric type characters in WoW.
So in this game, you've got a mixture in both. So it's really very difficult to make a decision. So I know that we're holding off judgment right now. Obviously we're leaning one side or the other, but we've
been debating so heavily, though.
The debate goes on. But it's interesting because even someone on Wildstar Central, they linked to our thread where we were debating it, because people are trying to grasp onto a faction pride, because World of Warcraft really instilled that in us, for the Horde, like, unless you're in Paris where everybody's for the Alliance. No, I'm serious. It was so funny. When I was out there, they did the cry, and when Samwise went up and did the for the Horde, everyone went boo, and it was like, holy shit.
Well,
but
you are used to a pretty even half and half on both sides, so I can see how you would be shocked at a purely dominating faction.
So
Well, I tell you what, I'm glad they brought factions back on this because, the last one we played, Guild Wars, didn't have a faction. Everybody talked to everybody, everybody could play everybody and fight everybody. And I missed having a faction and I guess another group of people I could hate and try to kill.
yeah.
But I'm glad it's back. I'm glad that there's,
Agree.
the built-in animosity that you could have between the two.
I agree. I think that's a really fun aspect of an MMO in particular because you're playing with your friends and then you want to kill the enemy. So it gives you a reason to do that. Plus, it also adds for some really cool, faction-based housing. We only have a minute here, so I just want to sum up some stuff that you'll get, like with the Atmosphere, is, based on your race, based on your faction, based on that, you can select a house that looks like a Granok house. You can select a house that looks like an Orin house. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these different things that play into these different factions and really helps to further the Atmosphere even more. So...
Oh, and another thing that just reminded me of, there's humans on both sides, so people have brought up the idea of, well, why can't they talk to each other? Is there going to be cross-faction talking? And the devs said they don't want it, and what they're leaning towards, at least when they had this interview, was if a human from one side talks to a human from the other side only hears it as insults.
Oh, awesome.
That's
So
great.
you don't,
So
you
you-
may say, hey, I love you, and they'll hear you're
Go
a
fuck
dirty
yourself.
piece of junk and I'm gonna kick you in the butt or something like that,
No
Yeah.
more leet speak like back in the early days of WoW.
Wow.
And with that, by the way, we are 20 seconds over. Oh my God, your pizza is free.
Oh,
Anyway, this has been.
just don't give them the phone
this,
number to call.
no. This is sorry about that, guys. We broke our own rule by 20 seconds. No, it's fine. This has been AltTabMe.com. If you would like to talk about anything that we didn't get to talk about fully, or you want to discuss your faction pride or anything about the Atmosphere in this podcast, head on over to AltTabMe.com and check it out with the community. And with that, we will see you guys next time.